In this lesson, we're going to take a look at compound conditions. So far, we've done comparisons where two values have been involved, and these are called simple conditions. But you may find yourself wanting to add in multiple conditions into a program to make sure that it checks to see if multiple things are true before it runs a line of code. So luckily, you can do that with multiple logical operators all in the same line. And we can use the same comparison operators that we did before, but we can now make our programs make decisions based upon multiple comparisons of values, not just one. To show these, what we're going to do is together we're going to create a user database. And what we're going to do is we'll start off with a comment, compound conditions. And we're going to see some new operators here. Well, not new, but we're going to use it for the first time as the not operator. And what we're going to do is we'll make sure that the user is going to enter some information. We're going to store that in database, and only when they go to log in, make sure that the person has the right username and the right password. So the first thing we're going to do is set up a username equals an empty string. And then what we're going to do is while not username equals input username. Okay, so what's happening here? I want to make sure that the user enters something in for the password, username and password. I don't want them just hitting the enter key, which results in an empty string. That won't do. So I wanted a loop that continues to ask for the username until the user enters something. All right, so they actually, I'll delete that space in between the quotes there. So yeah, I just want it to actually make it clear. I can put these as double quotes. Oops. There we go. Yeah, so the user now has to enter something in order to proceed. They can't just hit enter and the program will respond. And the while condition, I used here the not operator. It works a lot like the word not. In English, putting the word not in front of anything creates a new phrase that means the opposite of the original. So in Python, that's the exact same thing, right? So while not true, it's going to do a check until that it means not username is true, and when username is false. And not username is false when username is true. So it does the opposite of this right here, username itself. If you just put username and username equals 3 or something like that, the default to this is going to be true while it exists, while something is there, meaning that they have to type something in for it to work. They can't just hit enter key. So while there isn't anything in username, that's how you can read this. While username is not true, okay, while not username is false, I guess you'd say it like that. Basically, print to the screen a username. All right, looking for them to enter something. Okay. And we can see that happen here. If we go to type, we just hit enter. It will just keep on entering it. Okay. Nothing will happen. An empty string here in username starts off as false. So it goes false. While not username, well, it's not true. Okay, right now it currently is not true. Run the loop, username equals input. So it asks for the username. Unless they type something in here, that username will remain empty. It will remain false. Okay, there will be nothing to be filled in for it. So when it goes back to the loop again, it says, okay, there's nothing there still, and so it's still false. The second we type anything in, okay, we see the program ends by that little yellow arrow there. The program ends because now we have something. Basically, it breaks out of the loop and it goes down to line 6, and it's ready to continue the rest of the program. We want to do the same thing for our password too. So we'll do password equals empty string. We'll do while not password equals input password. Okay. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the person who's entering their information, if they belong inside the database or if they have clearance. We could just do that right within our compound statements, right within our conditional statements. We don't have to create anything separate for that. Okay. And it's going to basically tie into some of the things we learned last time, which was using else, if, else, and elif. All right. To get started, then what we have to do is we have to create some some people here and their usernames and passwords. So we can start off by doing if username equals, and then we can enter what we want to do a check for, double equal sign. And we can just put in maybe some people from the Avengers, right? So we'll abbreviate first name as S, and then we can do Joe Hanson. Okay. And here's the second part. Okay, so if username equals this, we want to do a check for the password though too, right? So we could ask the same question afterwards and say, if username is that, if password equals Black Widow. Well, actually, we'll do no space. Okay, so in this case, if username is this and password is this is a nested if statement, and that would be fine. Except, like I told you before, if you start nesting these if statements down level by level, the program becomes much more complicated. It'll be much easier just to ask it in one time, right? If username equals this and if password equals that, then access granted, right? And so that's what we're going to do here. We're going to do it using what's called the AND operator. And the AND is going to allow us to do a check. So if username equals that and password equals that, okay, then we could do something like print hello Black Widow. Okay. And let's run it and see what happens. So it asks for the username. We'll do a check for a username. Okay, so it's going to keep on asking us. Let's enter a username. We'll do S Johansson. Password. Let's check our password to make sure that it's not, basically, it doesn't allow us to enter just a blank string. Good. So it wants a password, so we can enter it. Black. What happened here? I don't know. There we go. Typo. I don't know if everyone else saw that. Right, typing out going, why did you add a W to hello? I don't know. I was thinking widow, I guess. I don't know. All right, back to this. If username equals this and password equals Black Widow, print that. Let's clear this out and try this one more time here. Okay. Let's do and password. Why is it giving us this loop? What is going on here? Oh, here. I messed up. Password, not world. Alrighty, there we go. Now let's stop it and run it again, see what happens. All right, there we go. All right, so I'll put a comment here. This is the AND operator. And basically, it does exactly that. It checks to see if both sides of the conditions are true. So what we can do is we can add a few more people here. All right, and we can use elif. Username equals, let's see, have Tony Stark, and password equals Iron Man. Print. What's up? Actually, there we go. What's up, Iron Man? All right, then we can do LF. Username equals. Who else we got? We got. Yeah, you know what I did? I put as Johanna, put the actress's name here, and I put the character's name. We'll just do character names from now on. I think it might be easier for me. All right. So who else we got? We got Captain America. So let's see. That's Steve Rogers, and password equals uh, Captain America. We'll do hello Cap, and then we'll do LF. We'll do a couple more. We'll do username equals Bruce. Let's do Brew B banner, and password equals um Hulk. Hulk. There we go. Print. Um, Hulk smash. Okay. All right, so we got some characters here. We got if username equals S. Johansson, password Black Widow, username T Stark, password Iron Man. These would be the worst username and password combinations in the world. But LF username Steve Rogers, Bruce Banner. Okay. Oh my God, Hunk. Hopefully you're fixing these typos while you're typing in and not relying on me. Um, all right, so Hulk. There we go, and print Hulk smash. Let's run it just to make sure. Username, we'll try B banner. I can't type. There we go. And password Hulk. Hulk smash. All right. Okay, so we have our if, elif. We can see the and operator working here to check both conditions to make sure that they are true all the way down. All right, let's pause for a minute also before we move on and talk a little bit about how the and operator works a little more. And just to clarify, the and operator is going to do a check on both sides of the condition. So just like we would with like username and password combination, right? There is both sides. These statements here, these operators, the double equal sign, the greater than less than signs, the not equal sign. Those are basically going to have the computer evaluate a true false statement. And so it's going to check to see if that statement, username equals S. Johansson, is that true? And also, and is password Black Widow. If one of these statements is false, it will not run this line. So both statements for and, both statements need to be true. Both conditions need to be true in order for it to move on to the next thing. Okay, that's going to be important because we're going to use some other operators later on. We're going to use or, and we're going to see how you can use that to basically account for a difference in it. But as long as one of them is good enough, you'll proceed forward. But just to make a point that for and, both statements need to be true in order for it to move forward. And I think the next logical thing to do then is to make sure that we have an else statement down the bottom that will say, we'll do a print. We'll say login failed in username and or password. Isn't that the statement they always get when you go to log in? You typed in the wrong password and it says login failed, incorrect username or password. And you're like, which one is it? You know, we'll do the same thing to these people. So we're not gonna tell them which one exactly is wrong, but because then actually to check to see which one was wrong, we'd have to see if the username actually exists in this list at all, and we didn't actually build this as a list. So in that case, it would be really kind of hard to check and kind of annoying in the current setup. So for this one, we'll just say you got something wrong and try it again. Okay. Now maybe we want to have this login screen and we want to check through the logic of all of it, and maybe we want to 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 get into the program here, get past security. Maybe we want to allow a guest a guest username, right? And so a guest username and a guest password. All right. And um, maybe this is the maybe this is like the helicarrier and in the Avengers, and we need to give people access to the Wi-Fi or something. So what we can do is we can do one more elif. And for this one, we're going to, actually, I'm going to put a comment above here. We're going to use the or operator. Okay, and we can use elif username equals guest or password equals guest. Print. We'll do guest access granted. Okay. All right, so we have username guest. As long as one of these returns true, okay, the program will run, line 26 will run. Difference between that and the banner and Hulk above is that we use the and above and both need to be true. We use or down here and only one needs to be true. Okay. And that gives us a little more flexibility inside of our program. We could test for other conditionals, other conditions, and we can make sure this runs. Now, one thing we can do is we've talked about compound conditions. If this true, okay, what if we had another variable and we did, let's see, okay, what if we had a security variable, okay, and we'll do access security level equals 3. Okay. And for this, if username is that and password's that, okay. And what we could do is we can add another and statement here. And let's see, password, I would say security level equals, let's say 2. Okay, so in this case, we set the access security level needed to get in, right? And then if the person's username and the password and access security level equals 2, we now have 3 simple conditions here. We have a check for the username, check for the password, and a check for this access level. And basically, the access level right now is too high for her, right? So she only has 2. You need a 3 to gain entry. But the point here is that we can add in as many conditions as we want, and it works the same way. Username equals S. Johansson. If this is true, and if this is true, and if this is true, then print this statement. Okay, if one of these conditions fails, in this case, her security level access, okay, we can try it. Let's see. Username, we can do S and Black Widow. Okay, we see that login failed. Incorrect username or password. See, we added the security level, so we didn't update our print statement at the end. But the point here remains that this access failed where it succeeded earlier. And why did it fail? It failed because of this right here. It failed because we added in a third condition that checks to see if she has the right access level, which she does not currently. She has only level 2. We need 3. And because this statement fails, it will not print this statement below. Okay. It's now we can see we can add in multiple conditions, multiple simple conditions into a compound condition that checks to make sure that the specific occasion in which we need her to get access, she has, okay, or the specific occurrence, security levels there, right? Everything works out, okay, she can get in. Otherwise, no. And so this is a very easy way. We can keep on adding these things on the end of this thing. We can have multiple and or statements. The problem comes with actually tracing the logic of all of this. And it could be tricky to follow exactly where the program is going and what step the program's on. Okay. And so in order to trace this, it might not be the best way to add in like 10 different and or statements to this line here. I would say keeping it to maybe 3 or 4 at the max, right? Because like I said, these can get tricky. It might be helpful then to add in multiple if statements or to rethink the way that the structure of your program to basically limit the amount of conditions you need to check for. The more conditions you check for, the more likely it is that you'll have a bug enter your program. something that's unintended, an unintended effect. And in that case, it's going to be harder to trace back where exactly that happened. If you're checking for like 9 different conditions here, which one failed, in that moment. Here we know because we're entering the username and we're entering the password. But if this is a database of information and we're checking for like 9 different, to make sure that 9 different pieces of information are true in order for it to run the next line, and it fails and we don't know why it fails, we have to go back and check through each one of those different 9 conditions individually to make sure that when this program runs, those 9 conditions are all true. Okay. And it just creates more work. It just creates more coding that you have to do. And so it's easier just to limit the number of conditions you check for to a manageable amount. And manageable, it's up to the programmer, it's up to the needs of the program itself. But I would recommend probably no more than 4 conditions inside one of these if statements here. Otherwise, you're going to run into some trouble. All right. So that wraps up what we did for compound conditions. And moving on, what we'll do is we'll take everything we learned here to build a simple game. We'll build a simple number guessing game using while statements, compound conditions, everything you learned here, user inputs, not statements, or statements, and statements. We'll get it all, and we'll build a pretty cool little guess my number game.